All right. Kwame Ashrali, Abrakam Yabashimashagashai. Let's get right back to it. So what we're gonna do is we're not gonna waste any time. All right. I want to say all praise to God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the Wadi Yahweh for this day. Thank you for everything you've done, everything you're still doing. Baba Kusha Nathan Lanawa, please give to us give instructions to Baba Kusha Magan. Please guard our hearts. All right. So as we go into this time frame, remember we are so caught in Dr. Martin Luther King Day. Today is the day of memorial. Today is the day of memorial for one of our elders, one of our Zaquanium, that was murdered in the city streets of right here in America, right here in Babylon. So as America, as Babylon, as the rest of them, they give us a day off from slavery, right? A day off from the plantation. We get a day off, so we're gonna spend this time in perspective. So I'm gonna play a video today, and this video is I'm gonna share the link. Of course, you know I like to share, man. I like to share. I like to share everything but my bed. I'm sharing my bed. So let's see. Let's copy this, and then we're gonna go to our screen share. And Shalom, welcome back. Welcome back. This is going to be very pleasurable. I'm going to play a documentary, and you can, of course, share it. You can watch it. You know, a lot of us don't know about this elder. All right, welcome back, everybody that's rocking with us still. Welcome back. Appreciate you. So you might not know about this Zaquan. So we know that the word Hebrew is Zaquan, right? Z-A-Q-A-N. Zaquan means what? It means elder. It means a beard, right? It means somebody that's over us, okay? So we're gonna look at one of the Zaquanium. This Zaquan is, hey, tell me what y'all think. I just, over the time frame that we wasn't on video, I just changed my sound system around. So this sound system could sound different than the last video. All right, salute to my rib, to my sister Kanaya Wakanawan. She's a sound person. So I hook up stuff. And I learned a few things from her. All right, but put a 7 in the room if it sounds okay. Put a 3 in the room if I need to fix it. All right, Baba Kushad. Salute to the family that's watching on Facebook. I want to show you this real quick, and make sure you share this out too, because I don't know who all's teacher doing whatever. Just bring our people to remembrance for this time frame. I want to show you something. Check this out. Did you know that Dr. Martin Luther King had an OG big brother? Did you know that? Did you know that? I didn't know that. I didn't know that Dr. King had an OG big brother. And his OG big brother's name was A.D. All right? His name was A.D. King. Well, apparently A.D. King was a beast. A.D. was a hitter. Apparently A.D. wasn't that one you really wanted to see. So as I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, I'm like, this reminds me of my binding. This reminds me of my son, of my Yashar, of my Jeremiah. This reminds me of my Lamadia, my Bayamia, my Zacardia. Zacardia, he's supposed to have him a match. He's supposed to have him a comrade. But this reminds me of the two brothers, because just like you might have a brother in your life, listen, Dr. Martin Luther King had a brother, and his brother was named A.D. Dr. Martin Luther King's brother was named A.D. King. Now, some of you may know this, some of you may not. But I just want to share this with y'all, and the reason being is because there's always two sides to every story. Now, I'm going to start with right here. I keep forgetting, my laptop is a touchscreen when I'm on my TV, so I keep getting ready to swipe my TV. King Alfred Daniel Williams. Alfred Daniel Williams, last name King, also known as A.D. Hey, what up, homie? Hey, where A.D. at? Hey, A.D. around there? Yeah, you know A.D. around there shooting them craps and raking them pockets. He got that Draco up under his 3-piece suit. The thing about A.D. was a beast. A.D. he grew up in the truth just like Dr. Martin Luther King did. But something that was different about big homie OG A.D. was that if you look, he looks like my son Jeremiah. This is exactly how my fine Jeremiah's little round fat head is. I ain't coming against the elder. You know, the elder got the fat head. But this is Dr. Martin Luther King. And this is his gangster brother. This is the one that nobody talks about. A.D.O.G. King. Well, let's talk a little bit about A.D. King. First of all, there can't be too much of a smear campaign on him, okay? But, and the reason why we say that is because, you know, if there's too much of a smear campaign to give people so much to say, his brother was Dr. Martin Luther King, of course. They was born about a year and some change apart. All right, here go a good picture of Papa King, Daddy King, Martin Luther King, and then his brother A.D. King. Here go Yashar and Jeremiah. I see Yashar and I see Jeremiah. That's right. Those are my two. I see Lamadia and I see Banyamyan. But there's something different about their character, their personality. See, Martin Luther King, he was easygoing, get along with everybody. Hey, what's up? Hey, how you doing? Did you know that this right here? And A.D. was the one that would come up and be like, that's my brother. Don't you mess with my brother. I'll punch you in the place where the Lord bless you. A.D. was a beast. And here's another thing about A.D. King. He not only was a part of the revolution with his brother, he was also assassinated with his brother. Why isn't he talked about? Assassination while in church. 6 years after his son was assassinated, Alfred Daniel King, his brother, mysteriously died in a swimming pool 15 months after him. That's just a real quick reading on that. This is very beautiful. Wife, Alberta King. All right, and we're gonna go to a video real quick. I pray everybody can see it. I pray you can see it good. Shalom is loud. All right, let's look at this. All right, for those who have eyes to see, ears to hear, I'm gonna play this documentary real quick. This is on A.D. King. Okay? We're only gonna go through it for a little bit, just enough for us to get some information. As you can see, don't that look like somebody you know? So yes, they're very similar in features. If you look at this video, this picture right here. Brother got the dark glasses on. He got the OG Lokes on. He's straight faced. Don't he look like A.D. King looks like at any minute he could just stand up and put his fist in the air and be like, fight the power. We got to fight the power that be. Fight, Martin. Don't he look like it? Because he was radical. He was a revolutionary just like his brother was. So even though Dr. Martin Luther King was more reserved, he had a brother that was a hitter. And his brother was OG A.D. King. I'm going to play this real quick, and I hope that somebody gets something out of it. All right. We're also going to look at Dr. King's murder, man. Not the shooting assassination. All right. We're going to look at his murder. All right. Now, I'm going to share this page right here. This is the YouTube page. I'm going to copy link this. All right. I'm going to cut this. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to share it back with you. Why? So you come see it for yourself. All right. So this is A.D. King. A.D. King, again, is the brother of Dr. Martin Luther King. And it was a beautiful thing because him and his brother rode together. So I'm going to play as much of this or some of this as we can. All right. And if anybody has any questions or anything, let's get to it. All right, let's get to it. Let's build. Let's start with turning some of this music down. Let's turn Nagayan down. Hebrew, the word music is Nagayan. We'll turn Nagayan down just a smidge. Just a smidge. All right. Just enough to be heard in the background. Not disappointed at all. Just completed. Okay, that's good. I just completed hooking up my sound system, so I'm really happy about that. I think it sounds great. I think it's going to work great also for the media. But let's get to it. We're going to see. This is a documentary. All right. It says A.D. King doc.
I was in the bed. My brother was in the bed. My baby brother was in the bed. And since the explosion, I did some research. What causes the damage in an explosion is not the initial explosion. It's called the concussion, the energy that comes behind. What we were told that ultimately whoever planted the bomb planted it where the concussion went away from the house. Left a big old crater out in the ground. But the bomb was so powerful, if the concussion had have come toward the house would have got leveled. What we experienced threw me and my baby brother out the bed and slammed us up against the wall. Simultaneously, debris flew by the bedroom door. And it's a blessing to still be alive behind that thing, because it could, if they had to turn it the right way, the house would have got leveled. That's from my research. But like I say, it ain't nothing like what you see on TV.
All right, so what he's talking about is this is their home being destroyed. Right here you see Elder AD. This is AD, Dr. Martin Luther King's OG big brother, all right? This is AD and his family after their house was bombed, right? Just like his brother Dr. King's was. Now, this is terrorism on the highest level. Well, I'm not interested in what they're doing over there, because we've seen how they've terrorized us over here.
When our home was bombed in Birmingham, Alabama, the night before Mother's Day in 1963. Now, Mom tells it differently. I believe when the house was bombed and the front of the house blew up and everything, I remember I thought Daddy had her in his arms. She says he pulled her by her hand. So that part of it is just a child's memory. But one memory stands out in my heart and in my mind. When we got outside and there was a crowd and the people were angry and they were frustrated. They were throwing rocks, wanting to turn the cars over. I know that some of those people who were doing that were what we called outside agitators, people who had been brought in to throw firebombs and to stir the crowd up. I'm very sure that that was happening. However, I remember my dad getting on top of a car, and I don't remember if he had a bullhorn or not, but his voice, I remember him saying, "Don't riot, don't destroy. If you have to hit someone, hit me. But I'd rather you go home and pray. My family and I are okay." I remember Daddy on that car. I may be paraphrasing his words a little tiny bit, but I remember him saying, if you have to hit somebody, hit me. But I would rather you go home and pray. My family and I are okay.
Now, this is little known history. So the mother that you're looking at right here is the daughter of A.D. King. So we know about Coretta Scott King. We know about Martin Luther King, but we not too commonly educated on the brother, the nieces, the nephews. And it's kind of crazy because they've taken a back light, but at the same time, they've always been there. And this is their story. Dr. Martin Luther King's brother was assassinated and murdered just like he was, for righteousness, for truth's sake. Their house was bombed just like Dr. King's was, and their children have a story to tell just like his do.
And believe it or not, the people who lived in the community actually quieted down and began to go home. And that way, the agitators were exposed.
My great uncle, ML, and my grandfather, AD, had a very close bond as brothers. ML was a little older, but they were raised together. And one of the things in my family that was really taught to all of us, including them back then, was that all of us could make an impact in the world. We could make a better place in our community. And at the same time, we have a self-assuredness that no one is better than us, but we're no better than anyone else. You know, we're all interconnected. There's always a difference that all of us can make. And it's really interesting for me, looking back on history, to see the amount of impact they were able to have in the community and the world in a very short period of time. Neither of these men really lived into their 40s. You know, they both died very young, but both had tremendous impacts on their community and their world.
I'm gonna stop that one right there. I have a few others we want to look at. And for those who don't know, Dr. King's brother, A.D. King, not only was he murdered, but there was a cover up on both ends. Now, I'm going to come to this specific screen right here, and I hope everybody can see this. You see this? This says Dr. Martin Luther King was suffocated to death in a hospital. Lawyer speaks out.
That have gone on. Tonight, our nation celebrates one of its most inspirational leaders and activists by honoring the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. We know all that he came and dealt with racial fairness and lost his life in that fight. But did you know that there are investigations that have gone on about how actually he died? See, most of us think that we know exactly how he died, how he was shot, and it was an open and shut case. Well, guess what? This is an amazing tale that you're about to hear from Michelle Greenstein about what has been uncovered regarding his death. I'm gonna hand it to you and let you take it away because.
All right. So for those of you who don't know, this website right here is very helpful with not just exposing the media, but they also like to expose what's going on in the world. All right. So there's another website called Young Turks, The Young Turks. They're very helpful also. All right. So take note of this. We want to make sure that this so-called Dr. Martin Luther King's Day, we can teach our children something different, not the same old sad Negro. All right. Let's teach them about the revolution. Let's teach them about the murders. Let's teach them about the injustice. Let's teach them about how hard our forefathers fought for us. All right. Let's teach how it all complies to the Bible.
My conversations with you thus far, I have been drop-jawed listening to you.
And so was I. I actually spoke earlier today to Dr. William Pepper. He actually, on behalf of Coretta Scott King and the King family, filed a civil suit in the case of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. Now, this is the only trial that's ever been held about this assassination because, as we know, James Earl Ray, after he pled guilty, meant there was no trial. So this is the only trial that's ever been held. Now, we're all familiar with the official story of this lone gunman, right, in 67.
James Earl Ray shot him.
You know, he was in jail for armed robbery. He somehow escaped.
Admitted to it.
Right. But what's interesting is that he pled guilty, but he didn't confess. And actually, in these court transcripts, he says over and over, I did not confess to killing King. And he says he only did so because he feared for his life. He and William Pepper told me that the only reason James pled guilty is because it was the only way to save his life. Now, he did this as a last resort, and he was actually told by his lawyer, Percy Foreman, that he should take the guilty plea because that's how he was going to get a new lawyer. So he saw this as his only way to get rid of this bad lawyer and get a new lawyer. And interestingly enough, he filed for an appeal days afterward and tried to get a new trial. So like I said, I spoke to Dr. Pepper earlier today. Here's what he had to say about the way Dr. Martin Luther King was actually killed.
Wow.
He wasn't killed from the bullet that hit him on the balcony. He was taken to the St. Joseph's Hospital, and he was killed in the emergency room of St. Joseph's Hospital by the chief of neurosurgery, Dr. Breen Bland, who came in when they were all working on him in the emergency room, and he said, get out of here, let that die. And as they moved out of the room, the last one out was a surgical nurse, Lula Mae Shelby. And when she heard them gathering up spit in their lungs to spit on Martin's body lying on a bed there, then she saw Dr. Bland take the catheters out of Martin's body and take the pillow from under his head and put it over his face and suffocate him. And that's how Martin King died. That's how he was really assassinated. Now,
I'm going to play that again.
Enough, he filed for an appeal days afterward and tried to get a new trial. So like I said, I spoke to Dr. Pepper earlier today. Here's what he had to say about the way Dr. Martin Luther King was actually killed.
Wow.
He wasn't killed from the bullet that hit him on the balcony. He was taken to the St. Joseph's Hospital, and he was killed in the emergency room of St. Joseph's Hospital by the chief of neurosurgery, Dr. Breen Bland, who came in when they were all working on him in the emergency room, and he said, get out of here, let that die. And as they moved out of the room, the last one out was a surgical nurse, Lula Mae Shelby. And when she heard them gathering up spit in their lungs to spit on Martin's body lying on a bed there, then she saw Dr. Bland take the catheters out of Martin's body and take the pillow from under his head and put it over his face and suffocate him. And that's how Martin King died. That's how he was really assassinated. Now, he might have died anyway from the bullet wounds, but he didn't. He was still alive and still breathing. The chief neurosurgeon, he intervened and he made sure that death would result.
Wow.
Right?
All right, so I'm gonna stop that right there, and they can give their own commentary. And from here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this exact same link and we're gonna click it right here. Okay, for those who have ears to hear, here you have it. All right, here's the link. You can go and watch it, view it for yourself. Not only that, you can prove or disprove it for yourself. All right, and let's get one more video. Okay, we're going to stay within that same vein. Okay, looking at the assassination and the details. Let's see what we're told.
On April 3rd, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. traveled to Memphis, Tennessee to lend his support to an ongoing sanitation workers' strike. That night, the civil rights leader delivered a moving speech at the Bishop Charles Mason Temple titled, "I've Been to the Mountaintop."
I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
Little did anyone know, however, that this would be King's final speech. The next night, on April 4th, King was standing at the balcony of his room at the Lorraine Motel. He was scheduled to attend dinner with the minister, but at approximately 6:01 p.m., he was shot by an unknown assailant. King was immediately brought to a nearby hospital, but never regained consciousness and died just an hour later. He was 39 years old. It was later revealed that the shooter was a man named James Earl Ray, who had rented a room at a boarding house near the Lorraine Motel. Ray shot King with a rifle through his bathroom window. He was apprehended more than 2 months after King's assassination and sentenced to 99 years in prison. Ray died in prison in 1998 at the age of 70. Dr. Jerry T. Francisco, the medical examiner who worked on Martin Luther King Jr., noted that a bullet entered the activist's chin and neck area and severed the spinal cord. It was concluded that the wound was fatal, and King died shortly after he was shot. King's right mandible was fractured, and there was a laceration on his jugular vein. The official cause of death was listed as gunshot wound to spinal column, lower cervical, upper thoracic. Later, an inquiry was launched regarding whether Dr. Francisco had sufficiently traced the bullet's trajectory when he examined the body. During the course of this inquiry, a panel of forensic pathologists reviewed the reports and pieces of evidence. They concluded that Dr. Francisco did not track the path of the bullet, as he had become concerned about causing, quote, unnecessary deformity to King's body. Regardless, it was subsequently concluded that the autopsy report was accurate. According to further investigation, the bullet entered below the right side of King's mouth and fractured his jaw. It then exited his face and re-entered his neck, hitting vital arteries and fracturing his spine. The autopsy report also showed that the condition of King's heart was like that of a 60-year-old's, despite him being just 39 years old at the time of his death. The examiner concluded that King's stressful life may have contributed to the advanced aging of his heart. During his life as an activist, King was arrested multiple times, spent some time in jail, and survived an earlier attempt on his life. On April 8, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr.'s widow, Coretta Scott King, went to Tennessee and chose to lead a march to continue her husband's mission. Dressed in black during the silent march, Coretta King led a crowd of 40,000 people. In a speech, she said, "I was impelled to come. I asked the question, how many men must die before we can really have a free and true peaceful society?" Coretta was supportive of her husband's work and was often referred to as the First Lady of Civil Rights. In a letter MLK wrote to Coretta, he had said, "Let us continue to hope, work, and pray that in the future we will live to see a warless world, a better distribution of wealth, and a brotherhood that transcends race or color. This is the gospel I will preach to the world."
All right. So we see there's two different narratives. Now, there's two different narratives, Josh Allah. So what are your thoughts on this? There's one narrative. This one here is the one that we've been taught. This is the one that we've all been taught. Dr. Martin Luther King was shot.
But did you know?
Well, that was it.
So like I said, I spoke to
But what about when you have other details? Is that not what we do? We investigate? It is. And what we find out is that the elders from our side, from our team, from our community, all give a different testimony. Not only was Dr. Martin Luther King murdered in the hospital, his brother, A.D., was also murdered at the hands of the same people who they were working to gather together with. Let me get this real quick. It's going to be the last one for now. And as we get these jewels, I pray that they help somebody learn. Let's hear what an elder mother has to say. For me, Charlotte.
Tell me about Darlene, Al, as well as Vernon. What happened to them? How did they die? To set the record straight.
Esther Darlene, let me just, as I remember it, it was on the weekend, and I remember I was working at the King Center at the time, and I remember it was a Friday afternoon. After I left work, I went to the had stopped at the hairdresser and get my hair fixed. And while I was sitting there getting my hair fixed, my fifth child, Vernon Christopher King, called me. He knew where I was, and he came up. He called me at the beauty shop where I was, and he told me, he said, Mama, he said, you come home real quick. He said, something has happened to Darlene, and you come on right now. I said, all right. So I left immediately and came to my home. And when I got there, Vernon was waiting for me, and he said, Mama, let's go. He said, Darlene is up at high school where she went to school at Southwest High School. He said, Darlene is dead. I said, what? And he said, Darlene is dead, Mama. He said, now let's go on up to the school and see. Well, I was in a state of shock when he said that. At that time, we had a swimming pool. We had a swimming pool in our backyard, and
I apologize for those of you who don't know that just getting up in here. We're learning about Alfred King. His name was A.D. King, Dr. Martin Luther King's OG brother. All right. Dr. Martin Luther King, or as he's also known as Michael King, was laid back. He was reserved. He was chill. He was a ladies' man. Everybody liked him. He had another brother that was a wild boy. You had Master P, and you had what's Master P's brother's name? Y'all know what I'm talking about. But there's always two sides to it. Well, at the end of AD's life, he was rocking with his brother. It's beautiful. There's so much to go into it. Let's listen to what the elder mother has to say. So you want to pay attention to the name Darlene Alfred King III. All right. These are relatives of Dr. Martin Luther King that are not spoken about.
Oftentimes I would always talk to the children. I say, when you swim, I said, you cannot, I don't want you to swim on a full stomach. I said, and after that, you wait at least 30 minutes before you get into the pool. And so they all knew that rule. Well, what had happened, and I didn't know it, it seemed that Darlene was very popular, and she had 4 of her girlfriends to stop by and to see her. And so when they came by to see her, as I understand it, they wanted to go up to the high school where we was, and they wanted to run a track. Well, I had talked to Darlene when I was at the beauty shop and told her that I wanted her to start dinner for me, start cooking dinner for me. And she said, well, Mama, I've already cooked them. I said, what have you cooked? She said, I cooked some turnip greens, some rice and gravy, and some cube steak. I said, oh, you're smart. Thank you. Well, that was when I had talked to Darlene. Well, when Vern called and came up and told me that Darlene was dead, and I went into shock because I had already talked to Darlene and told her what to do. In the meantime, 4 of her friends had stopped by to get her. They wanted to run a track, and so that's where they were. So when I got home and we went up to the track, Darlene was already dead. What had happened, the girls told me, our 4 friends said that they noticed that Darlene had was down on the ground, and they saw her feet and hands dangling in the air. They thought she was just clowning, and they didn't go to see about her. They thought she was just on the floor, on the ground, clowning and carrying on. But what had happened, when I found out the details, when Darlene was down on the ground, she was fighting for her life because she had asphyxiated. That means she had drowned in her own food. And so when I got the autopsy report and checking into all of that, I said, well, what went wrong? They said she asphyxiated, said she had turnip greens, rice and gravy, and cube steak in her body. And after swimming or whatever went wrong on that, she was too full and she asphyxiated. So as far as I know, and I can tell Darlene, my beautiful daughter, Esther Darlene, asphyxiated on food.
Okay. What about Al? What happened to him? How did he die? Al.
What?
How did Alfred Daniel die? Jim?
Alfred he loved basketball, and from what I'm told, when I got the call about Alfred, he was on a field. I don't know which field it was or what track it was. Alfred loved butter.
The Reverend A.D. Williams King was born in 1930 to Dr. and Mrs. Martin Luther King Sr.
All of a sudden, I looked at my picture window and I noticed it had begun to crack. I didn't hear anything, I didn't see anything, but I noticed my picture window began to crack. And simultaneously, my husband came up from the bedroom, and by the time we got to the middle of our home, the second bomb hit.
World War II veteran named Roosevelt Tatum, who introduced himself, said he lived in the neighborhood and asked if he could come in. He would like to talk with them.
Martin Luther King Jr. believed in nonviolence. He did love his neighbor as himself.
I'm proud of the fact that we have people like A.D. and others in the movement who gave their lives.
So like I said, I spoke to Dr. Pepper earlier today.
Wasn't killed from the bullet that hit him on the balcony. He was taken to the St. Joseph's Hospital, and he was killed in the emergency room of St. Joseph's Hospital by the chief of neurosurgery, Dr. Breen Bland, who came in when they were all working on him in the emergency room, and he said, "Get out of here, let that die." And as they moved out of the room, the last one out was a surgical nurse, Lula Mae Shelby, and when she heard them gathering up spit in their lungs to spit on Martin's body lying on a bed there, then she saw Dr. Bland take the catheters out of Martin's body and take the pillow from under his head and put it over his face and suffocate him. And that's how Martin King died. That's how he was really assassinated.
Meet Mrs. Naomi Barber King, wife of AD and sister-in-law of Coretta Scott and Martin Luther King Jr.
It was May the 11th, 1963, a Saturday before Mother's Day. I had prepared my dining room table with all of my finery and getting set for, Mother's Day the next day, and was feeling good, about the preparations and everything. And my husband was back in the bedroom working on his sermon. And so after I had finished decorating the table and all, I went and I sat in the living room on my sofa, and there was a picture window directly in front of me. So I was just sitting there, and it was about 11 o'clock in the night, 11 o'clock. And I was just sitting there, just meditating and enjoying the quietness. And all of a sudden, I looked at my picture window, and I noticed it had begun to crack. I didn't hear anything, I didn't see anything, but I noticed my picture window begin to crack. And simultaneously, my husband came up from the bedroom, and he came up and he opened the front door to our home, and he looked up the street and down the street, and it was so quiet that you could hear a cotton ball fall. It was so quiet. And when he did that, he came over and took my hand. He said, "Naomi, let's get out of here." He said, "Because it's too quiet about here." And by the time we got to the middle of our home, the second bomb hit.
The security folk who went over to the house to sort of stand guard, but it was really too late because the bombing had taken place. Ironically, no one was killed. We just was blessed.
Behold the Dream, Brother to the Dreamer, introduces you to the Reverend Dr. A.D. Williams King, little known giant of the civil rights movement.
Martin Luther King Jr. believed in nonviolence.
I'm so sorry. That elder looks exactly like my son Jeremiah. No, Yashar. He looks just like Yashar. My bad. I just had to say that.
Did love his neighbor.
Nope, Jeremiah.
As himself. Because he was mortal, this belief was not a gift. It was a philosophy which grew from study, self-discipline, and prayer. As he achieved this way of life, so can I, and so can we all.
I would hate to have been AD, put it like that, with a brother named Martin Luther King Jr. Because he had his own position, and he was his own person, and people knew that. But the world didn't recognize a lot of that. They didn't recognize it in us. It was Martin Luther King Jr.
Anybody that would say that AD was not committed to the movement, they didn't know anything about the movement. AD was one of the leaders in the movement. He was a strategist. He was an architect. He was a warrior, activist. AD was somebody who said that did not know AD. AD was a warrior. At the same time, he was a loving and a kind brother. Great preacher. People gravitate to him.
I'm happy for two reasons. One, I would love to see my father get some credit for the sacrifices he made, because he gave up a lot, went to jail a lot on his own. And I think that it would be good for America and the world to see what he was able to accomplish with the help of God in his own right.
Like his brother and other members of his family, was deeply committed to end segregation, end racial discrimination. AD was very self-confident, strong, and solid in his own right.
You know, he was more radical than what you would think, because we met at a church right down the street from here, and we had a rally, and he had us to march down the street. And right in the middle of the intersection of 4th and Broadway, which is a busy, busy street, 4:30 in the afternoon, and had us to all sit down in the intersection, and we stopped traffic all ways. AD was kind of a person who could bring people together, and that's what he did. And he went to Purdue University, was able to lease their plane, their football plane, and we took a load of Kentuckians to Selma. He was on the picture with the governor when he signed the bill into law, which was the Kentucky Civil Rights Act in 1966.
I served as executive director of the Kentucky Christian Leadership Conference when Reverend King was the chairman of the board. Reverend King was a constant recruiter and the most prolific recruiter for the demonstrations.
Now, I know you all are up to speed, but as they're saying Reverend King, they're talking about A.D. King, okay? A.D. King is not to be slept on, all right? I encourage everybody to go a lot deeper. Just because you're hearing how they speak on this documentary, you got to go see what their family said. A.D. was the one, when Dr. King was trying to get everybody to chill out, A.D. was the one that would slide you. Hey, man, that's my brother.
He went through the churches. He organized the Kentucky affiliate of SCLC, known as Kentucky Christian Leadership Conference. And he went to youth groups. A.D. was a strategist in his own right of tactics to be used during the civil rights movement. He was an excellent speaker, good preacher, and a good pastor. I think his major contribution was that he did as much as possible carry out the same attitude and the same commitment that his brother had. I don't think A.D. ever really sought the limelight. He was in Memphis when his brother was killed. He didn't seek the limelight. I think he was always there and ready to do his part, but it was just not his personality. Now, to seek a reputation.
A.D. was just as important as ML. They were brothers, and they were full-blooded blood brothers. I mean, they were brothers all the way. He was as dedicated to that civil rights movement as his brother was.
A.D.'s role was as important as Martin's role. They were brothers, and A.D. knew that he was not Martin, and Martin knew that he was not A.D. Martin knew the campus. Martin knew the corporate boardrooms. Martin knew how to walk around with the intellectuals.
Y'all hear that? I really much thoroughly enjoy this, and I'm so apologetic and repentant that I didn't learn this before in the past. This reminds me of Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. This reminds me of the apostles, and this reminds me of Christ's brothers. Now, the one difference is that A.D., when you look up his history, he was, like I say, he was a hitter. He was an OG. He was a fighter. All right? His brother, more laid back, more of a ladies' man, more of a player. So you have these two characteristics that Yahweh used, and A.D. isn't spoken of enough. All right? So if anything, let his name be, etched in the memorials along with his Ach. Okay, so as you see, they say Martin, he could rub elbows, as they would say in the streets. He rubbed elbows. He was hog nogging, pause, no pork. But he was in the mix. What about A.D. though? He was a street man.
A.D., however, majored in the people of the streets. A.D. knew the people on the street. He knew how they felt. He knew that. Plus, they would follow him. He could corral them. And most of all, A.D. had a gift with leading children. A.D. could rally children around the civil rights movement. And Martin depended heavily upon A.D. His insight and the reasons that we are doing it are more important than pain, more important than setback, more important than failure.
If things didn't move today, we'll be back tomorrow. If things didn't move tomorrow, we'll be back the next day. If they didn't move on Friday, we'll be back Saturday. So number one, training, and who's eligible, who has the kind of character, who has the kind of faith foundation that can do those kind of things. The way AD made me feel, AD made you feel like you could do anything. AD would say, come on, let's do this. And he said, well, and AD said, come on, let's do it. We got to do it. We can do it. That was his spirit. And that was about everything across the board. We can do this. I can do it. I need for you to do this. I can't do this without you. Come on, let's do this. He made us stretch in a comical way. And at the time, you didn't know that was happening. But as I look back on it, reflect upon it, that's what he did. He made us all stretch in AD's way, AD's gifts and AD's talents. And we're all plugged into that. And that's what made AD a great man. And the movement owes a great debt. They should never forget A.D. King. I know I won't.
He was a sleeping giant that was never given the credit he should have been given.
I don't think he ever met a stranger in his entire life. And he had a way of relaxing people. He had a great sense of humor. A.D. recruited ministers and pastors into the movement that many people don't know about. Dr. King, Daddy King at Ebenezer, Dr. William Holmes Borders at Wheat Street Baptist Church, the late Reverend Joe Boone, Reverend Greer, the Reverend Dorsey, all of these, the Reverend B.J. Johnson, all of these persons were recruited to walk with and stand with the students. Moments in history when the power of nonviolence was operating to the extent that the jailer was apologetic for carrying out his duties. Of course, one could say not unlike the jailer in Philippi.
That's right.
Many centuries ago.
That's right.
Who said to Paul and Silas,
come on,
after the jailhouse was shaken,
come on,
what must I do?
Bring it out.
To be saved.
That's right.
And I think maybe at the core of our history, America might be raising the same question today.
That's right. That's right. Come on.
What can we do?
Come on.
To be saved
different
in the 21st century.
You have to take a look at the faith. You have to take a look at the courage of this man. A man that pastored an African-American church. A man that just didn't think that African-Americans had to be free. He thought that poor whites, he knew that poor whites was in the same boat. He wasn't out there just marching for us. He wasn't out there marching just because his brother was M.L. King, because he could have stayed comfortable at home. He could have stayed with his family. He didn't have to make the sacrifice that he made, and still living here in Louisville, still taking the abuse from some of the Louisvillian so-called friends. But he was a man of courage. To not to have known A.D. is a mistake, a terrible mistake for our children. Not to know right on that corner, 22nd, what is now Muhammad Ali Boulevard, was pastored by a very brave and courageous man, Reverend A.D. King, that sacrificed his family and himself. And then when he went home, he had to, into Georgia, he ran into other errors in his life it was heartbreaking. It was very heartbreaking. But you miss something when you talk about all the other great heroes and you miss AD. because a lot of churches, a lot of ministers in this city was afraid to open their doors when Dr. King came. He sacrificed. He opened his door. They blowed the doors off of his church.
Right.
He never stopped.
Right.
This cover shows a picture of me to the very far right. My head is just in the front of Dr. Ralph David Abernathy, and I'm standing right next to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and of course his brother, Reverend A.D. King, and right between them is Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth of Birmingham, Alabama. This particular march, I want to believe it was in Selma. I believe that's where this march was held. I think his strategy was what most of our strategies were, and that was support his brother. He supported his brother, whatever.
I'm so sorry. I got to pause right here. Let me give a salute to the Torah twins, man. Let me give a salute to the Torah twins and every other Israelite brotherly community that's out there. All right. Christ, he made a very powerful statement. And he said, "It is not yet my time, but your time is always." And when I heard that, I was like, what? Hamashiach Yahushai said, "It is not yet my time, but your time is always." And it tripped me out when I first seen it, because I'm like, oh, wow. First of all, Yahushua Hamashiach, he was popping fly with everybody. All right, Hamashiach would pop fly with everybody. All right, let's get this real quick. I'm going to read it out of the, let's read it out of the Living Translation. I like Living. I hope y'all don't mind. I like the Living Translation. All right. So, and the reason being, for those who don't rock with it, the reason being is because of how easy it is. All right. King James first, of course. All right. So check this out. Right. So verse 1. After this, Yahushua traveled around Galilee. All right. Just like Dr. King, right? Dr. King did like Christ did, right? So he wanted to stay out of Judea, where the Jewish Israelite leaders plotted his death. But soon it was time for the Israelite festival of tabernacles, and Yahushua's brother said to him, "Leave here." Now, this is Yahushua's brothers mocking him, right? Not supporting him. Yahushua's brothers wasn't on his side at first. They was against him. They were mocking him, right? Yahushua's brothers said to him, "Leave here and go to Judea," right? Why? They wanted him to go up to the Feast of Tabernacles, where your followers can see your miracles. Hey, you for real? You think you really the Christ? You really think you Hamashiach? All right. Hey, well, check this out. Go up in front of everybody and say it. I dare you. You can't become famous if you hide like this. I know this sounds so weird. This is the New Living, this is the Living Translation. You can't become famous if you hide like this. If you can do such wonderful things, show yourself to the world. For even his brothers didn't believe in him. Now let's go to King James. Ain't that a cold statement? Even his brothers didn't believe in him. After these things, Yahushua walked in Galilee, for he would not walk in Jewry, because the Jews sought to kill him. Now the Jews' feast of tabernacles was at hand. His brethren therefore said unto him, "Depart hence and go into Judea, that thy disciples may see the works that thou doest. For there is no man that doeth anything in secret, and he himself seeketh to be known openly." So they roasted him, right? "If thou doest these things, show thyself to the world. For neither did his brethren believe in him." For neither did his brethren believe in him. But Yahushua says something beautiful. Let's come back. It's always the coldest. He said, "Then Yahushua said unto them, my time is not yet come, but your time is always ready." I want y'all to keep that in mind. All right. Yahushua knew when he was going to die. He said, "My time is not yet come, but your time is always ready." Not only did he know that, he gave that sentiment to his brethren. He's like, it's not my time. If I go up here and say that I'm Yahushua Hamashiach, if I go up here and tell them that I'm the one that we've all been waiting on, it's been prophesied, yep, it's me, Shalom. If I do that, what's everybody going to do? Everybody's going to call him a heretic. Everybody's going to try to kill him during the Feast of Tabernacles too. You finished. You don't do that during the Feast of Tabernacles. When we worship in the Most High Yahweh, you don't do that. So his brothers are trying to set him up. Something that we've seen now is very beautiful with this, is Dr. King's brother, as all brothers should do. Good brothers, little brothers, big brothers, all brothers should support each other. A.D. King, Dr. A.D. King went from being how he was, which he was a good guy, but he was a street guy, to being 1,200% in the ministry. And after Christ gave his life, his brothers then believed and supported him.
His brother wanted him to do, wherever his brother wanted him to go, he was there. He never tried to usurp any of the limelight. As was said on so many occasions, most people didn't even know Dr. King had a brother. A.D. King was very much involved in the civil rights movement.
That looks just like Yashar and Jeremiah. That's so beastie. It's always a brother. You can tell. Look at his face. Look at his face. Look at AD. Can you tell which one AD is? I know you know Dr. King with his handsome self. Which one is AD? Don't he look like he a hitter? Hey, your camera getting too close to my brother. Brothers are supposed to protect brothers.
I know for a fact he marched in Zebulon because I was there with him. I know for a fact that he marched in Monroe and Social Circle because I was there with him. I was not with him in Kentucky, but I have a very close friend of mine in the civil rights movement, J.T. Johnson, who marched with Reverend A.D. Williams when they boycotted the Kentucky Derby. The only time that the Kentucky Derby was ever boycotted, and A.D. Williams was right there with his body on the line, along with J.T. and others. So people who say he was not involved, and wherever Dr. King asked A.D. to go to speak or to lead a march, he did it. So the only thing I can say to those who say that he was not involved in the movement, they don't know the history of the movement.
A.D. was a very generous and giving person. And you have to consider, it was a difficult thing to be the brother of Martin Luther King. He handled it so well. As you know, they got along great. He was an icon in his own right and cared about it as much as any of us. And I'm grateful that you're doing what you're doing. That will open up other doors that people can look into and see the life and times of these brothers. Not like Cain and Abel, but like Martin and A.D.
You see, we must remember, Martin.
Got to stop it there. Not like Cain and Abel, but like Martin and A.D.
Martin wasn't killed because of civil rights, human rights, segregation. He was the first black person in the history of America that got in a position to determine public policy. And that would not be tolerated. And so when we looked around one day and they said A.D. was killed, it was tragic to me because I knew him. I knew his kindness, I knew his politeness, I knew his niceness, and no envy. You can have brothers that can be close and still have a lot of envy. There was none of that. And he was always there for not just King, but for the movement. And he was doing things in Louisville that makes Louisville what it is today. You know, Reverend Coleman in Louisville wouldn't have been able to do the things he was doing had A.D. not sit up there. And so I just say one day, well, he don't have to be validated by nobody. You know, there's a universal order that his name is in the book. And that's all that counts. You got presidents whose name will never be in the book. You got billionaires whose name will never be in the book. Wherever the book with the decent lamb in it, he'll be there.
And so I just say to him, I see his children, and as I go backwards and forwards across the country, and I just think about him.
Stop right there. So everybody knows who this very famous comedian is, who was also part of the civil rights movement, which propelled the prophecies and the ministries of where the children of Israel are today. As you see, his very beautiful silver beard, reminiscent of Yahushua. His hair is his head white like wool, eyes as red as a flame of fire. It's gonna be scary when we see Yahushua. The other point of saying that is that this man mentioned what? The book with the good lamb. Come on, man. These elders was dropping jewels, and Yasha Allah, of course, we scream a little differently. We scream louder. We're more of a vulgar generation. These men had etiquette. They had class. Start putting fringes on them suits. You know? The point of saying such is to say they had etiquette, they had class, which truly shames me. I'm so ashamed. So ashamed of my speech. When your body starts telling on you, I think you should listen, though. Point of saying such as to say, these Aquanium, they were speaking the same ministry we're speaking, and so many of us called them coons or sellouts or X, Y's, and Z's, and we didn't know that they knew that we were the children of Israel. All right, Dr. King went to Jerusalem when he said, "I've seen I've seen the land. I might not get there with you, you know." Dr. King, in the last video, we talked about him going to Dimona, Israel. We talked about him going to Jerusalem. All right. These elders knew who we were. All right. So salute to these Aquanium. And when he's talking about the good book, he's talking about the book of life. He's talking about the good lamb. He's talking about the Lamb of Christ.
I don't think about him enough because we're so busy ripping and running. But when I looked at this picture here, this is him. Okay. I don't know how many pictures they have. This captures him. It was that smile, that look, that dignity, that honor, and he demanded respect, you know. And so again, I just say, you know, the truth will come out one day. But just thank God he was there for Martin, because you see, when close friends of Martin jumped him, you know, hey man, don't do this here. He could always call AD, or AD will always find him and be there, not because he was there for the movement. I'm here for you, brother.
That part. So when I think about Mabanyam, Zakaria, Lamadia, Banyamyan, Yeshua, Jeremiah, when I think about the coupling of brothers, and I think about the ministry, when I think about AD and how a lot of people just don't know that Yahushua HaMashiach had brothers that were apostles, the apostle John. Hamashiach's blood-born brother. And something else that I really liked in this documentary that was spoken was that AD's father and mother, same man, same woman. Not coming against anybody that's not, you know, not coming against anybody that's not, because I didn't think like that up until this last couple years, maybe 4 years. But the unity that these two men had, being not only uterine brethren, but also brethren by posterity, by progenitor, they were there for each other. All right. And that's a very powerful point. Let's yield.
Yea, do I walk through the valley? See, if you look at the Jews in the wilderness, they was in the wilderness.
Come on.
There's a difference between being in the wilderness and through the wilderness.
That's good.
When you walk in the wilderness, you never come out.
Right.
When you walk through the wilderness, yea, do I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. A rod, my staff, and may goodness and mercy. Now, here's where I ended. I said, if I had one wish with AD, I would make him walk behind me. Why? So my 23rd Psalm will say, may goodness and mercy follow you all the days of your life. He was goodness and he was mercy. And to be followed by that, you make my 23rd Psalms come true.
All right, so I'm going to pause right there. And the reason being is because salute to the Zaquan, Hamashiach, Yahushai are all those things. Okay, so let's give reverence to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Also, when you look at one of AD's speeches, he spoke about his brother, Dr. King, and how his brother, Dr. Martin Luther King, also known as Michael King, how he was very patient, and he said that Dr. King got these things, these attributes. Okay, Dr. King got these attributes from studying the Bible, and from practicing, and from prayer. That's what A.D., the brother of Dr. King, said about his own brother. All right, so salute to the elder, but also the glory goes to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and his only begotten Son. All praise.
That danger and death were lurking in the shadows, and we never knew when and where it would strike. But I think he was able to deal with it in such a way that it did not suppress his full participation and exposure in the struggle.
Now, what the elder here is speaking on is how Zaquan A.D., how he knew that that danger was always lurking around the corner. Man, these ain't your friends. I'm your friend. Dr. King was upstairs when he was shot, not when he was assassinated, because he was assassinated at the hospital. Now, he may have lived, he may have died because of the injuries that he sustained from taking a bullet under the jaw, rupturing the spine, going out in the neck, and coming back in. I don't even know how that happens. It just ricocheted. Ping, ping, ping. He may have lived, he may have died. Only Yahweh could have made that assessment. But for him to be for Dr. Martin Luther King to be spit on, for him to be suffocated, for his body to be beaten while at the hospital, while he was still alive. I apologize. His baby brother, his ox. I don't know the age. I know they were born 18 months apart. I don't know which one's older, which one's younger. If anybody could drop that jewel, it'd be a blessing. The point of saying such is to say, when his brother was downstairs, his ach was downstairs, and he heard the shot go off, I couldn't imagine Yashar or Jeremiah jumping out. My blind Jeremiah, he's going to be the hitter. He's a beast. Him jumping up and running upstairs and seeing his brother laying down in a pool of blood. He knew danger was around the corner. He was there. He was supportive of his ach. So the point of saying that was to say, as Zaquan speak, he's also speaking on that street toughness. All right. That elder AD walked in. Are you?
He was under constant threat. People were continuing to say, "We got your brother, we're going to get you." And he was organizing the Poor People's Campaign.
I'm telling him, Lord, when I go out to Southview, when I go out there now, both of my sons is in almost right together. I've got to look at one, look at the other. Lord, make me strong enough to take it, but I've already told him I'm not going to live out there. Lord, Eddie's not out there, and Emma's not out there. Dust to dust, ashes to ashes, earth to earth is out there. They're not there. I'm not starting to live out there. Ground my faith in God. So I have left yet something that you can't take away. Still left with me. Faith. Hope. Love. I'm not going to let myself stoop low enough.
There are many mysterious circumstances surrounding Reverend A.D. King's death.
I look out the bedroom. I see a body in the bottom of the pool. Once I concluded it was Daddy, the other thing I looked at, he was in his underwear. So I come back up out of the pool, wake Vita up, tell her Dad is drowned. Then that's when the telephone started. She started calling whoever she started calling. I woke Al up. Things got chaotic, but I made sure that when they pulled his body out of the pool, I was there. I know what I heard, and I ain't gonna dispute nobody, I ain't gonna debate nobody. The emergency worker said, ain't no water in his lungs. He was dead before he hit the water.
Pause. We're going to run that back. This is a testimony of A.D. King's own son, his bond. I want y'all to listen very closely again. I know you heard it. We're going to hear it again.
know what I heard, and I ain't gonna dispute nobody. I ain't gonna debate nobody. The emergency worker said, "Ain't no water in his lungs. He was dead before he hit the water." And I said, "What?"
Most disturbing thing to me, how a drowned man didn't have no water in his lungs.
There is no doubt in my mind that the system killed my beloved husband, the Reverend A.D. Williams King. I heard about the death of my beloved husband while in Jamaica, just ending a beautiful vacation where my husband, two of our children, Mrs. Coretta King and two of her children had just ended a beautiful vacation, 2-week vacation. And my beloved husband had left on Friday to come back to Atlanta to be in the pulpit on Sunday morning. So on Monday morning, while we were packing, getting ready to leave Jamaica, I received the call that my husband had drowned. When I got to Atlanta and deplaned, my first and only thought was to get straight to the funeral home and see my beloved husband, the body of my beloved husband. So I went straight to the mortuary and looked at my husband. When I got there, I just could not believe, first of all, that he was dead, he was gone. So I stood there, and then there was his body covered with the sheet. So then I just pulled the sheet back so that I could look at him and see for myself, that he was not a breathing, living soul anymore. And as I looked at him, on his forehead there were bruises, and then at his neck, it was very dark and looked like there were like rings. It was very dark. And then I just could not believe what I was seeing. I just could not believe that. So in a state of shock, I just lost it.
Many people at the time that my father, Reverend A.D. King, died, expressed doubts that it was accidental. The very first reports, they tried to say that Dad had committed suicide.
Elder Bernice King reflects on her uncle, Reverend A.D. Williams King.
Now, before she goes in, suicide by drowning.
I know he kind of served as a surrogate father for me and my siblings when my father was assassinated in April of 1968. There was a swimming pool in the backyard. And of course, at that particular time, I was a little afraid of water. I was only 6 years of age, and Uncle A.D. was a very good swimmer.
It's good for us as a family to kind of reflect back on this. I mean, we've lived with this and we've known it, but it's good to kind of pull it off the shelf.
Here's what Dr. Christine King Ferris has to say about her two brothers.
They believed in the cause. They were really to do anything, to do the ultimate, but they were determined and committed to a cause, and they were willing to pay the ultimate price.
Something I admired about A.D. and the way he handled the notoriety of his brother, and of course he's not in the limelight as much as his brother, but he always worked with his brother and cooperated with him, and always projected him as much as he could.
Pause. If nothing else, Baba Kusha, Yasharala Wahagoa Yamalike. Please consistently and continually hear the beautiful speech of unity of brethren.
That said something to me about the character of AD, in that he functioned in the sort of in the background of his brother, and his brother got all of the attention and notoriety, but yet AD was very faithful. He was very committed, very dedicated, and he was a strong advocate of civil rights, a love for people that was outstanding. And he also had a strong sense of right and wrong, and his devotion and dedication to the civil rights movement was unprecedented.
There are many mysterious circumstances surrounding Reverend A.D. King's death.
We have never done for A.D. what we did for Martin King to find out about his murder, to examine every detail. That must be done with A.D. And until it is, we will not be fair to A.D., nor to the movement, nor to the concepts, nor to the Christian ministry, or to his family.
Well, A.D. was in the middle of everything because he was Martin Luther King's baby brother. And for instance, when Martin went to jail in Birmingham, there were only about 4 or 5 preachers that went with him, but A.D. was one of them.
Good pause. When my aunt Ariat was in the streets, I don't care what was going on. If he was going to jail, I went to jail with him. Every time. Every time I could find him. Except for that one time, he was running, and we outside, we chilling outside, we in the projects. It's all beautiful and nice and stuff. It's a nice little setup for our little mini project. So long story short, that Ariat got it for everybody. He always got houses and cars for his master class. Long story short, we kicking it, and I just see this dude in an all-white Dickie suit, looking like the Flash. It was like an angel of light. Beautiful black skin, brown beard, and an all-white Dickie suit, and some Dickie Nike Cortez gangster Nikes. I'm like, man, I don't be booking. Hey, man, that's Dad Ariat. I said, oh, God, what's up? He was gone. Except for that time, I didn't get to go with him. Every other time, this man AD's legacy of nothing, I mean, of everything. His brotherhood so beautifully stands out. I gotta run this back.
He was at every mass meeting. His church was one of the churches that ended up as a headquarters, not only for voter registration and for demonstrations, but for training young people. So he was right in the middle of all of the movement activity and one of the real leaders.
We have been arrested around noon, between noon and 1 and this kind of thing. So Reverend King Sr. came into this big open cell block, right outside the cell block. And he said, he was a bail bondsman. And so he said, I'll sign for A.D. King, Otis Moss, and Albert Brunson.
There would be no possible, as we're filming this, Black president had there not been an A.D. King, had there not been these men and women who were willing to lay their lives on the line for economic justice, integration of public facilities, educational justice, housing issues, job and employment issues.
And here again, I'm very proud as an African American of what Barack Obama has achieved. But I'm not prepared to sit here and say that, and he did get overwhelmingly, he could not be president without getting overwhelming white votes.
Nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come.
And nothing is more frustrating than to try to push forth an idea whose time has not come.
Boss, you might not have heard that, but I completely feel that.
Overwhelmingly, he could not be president without getting overwhelming white votes.
Nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come.
Nothing is more powerful than the idea whose time has come, like the coming of Hamashiach, the coming of the chariots, the salvation of Israel, the restoration of the world being at Shalom, or just getting your business plan started, or having a passion to teach your nation, and finally seeing everybody's getting on the same accord.
And nothing is more frustrating than to try to push forth an idea whose time has not come.
And nothing is more frustrating than to try to push forward an idea whose time has not come. It is such. One of the prophets, I do believe it's written, said, this is the burden of the word of the Lord. If you can hear me well, put a 7 in here. This is the burden of the word of the Lord. It's very frustrating to try to push forth an agenda that you are a part of. I couldn't imagine being A.D. King, being a rider in the streets, being a rider for your brother, coming to Christ, because they was raised in Christ, coming to Christ, coming to the movement. And he was a street dude. A.D. was a street man. He was a man of the Most High, but he was a man. He was in the streets. They're not going to say it like this because we can't tarnish, we can't destroy, we can't tear down his legacy. We can't. So we have to be very careful and very mindful. They had to be very careful, very mindful, very tactful in how they delivered their message. But when you go and look at him, he was a G. He was a G in the streets, and he was known as a hitter. Oh, that's Michael's brother. Oh, that's Martin's brother. Oh, that's Tez's brother. Oh, yeah, he a hitter. Oh, yeah, that's so-and-so's brother. That's Corey's brother, all right? Just keep going. Just throw names out there. Right? That's Bruce's brother, all right? So it's nothing as frustrating as watching for a plan to come into play. And there's nothing more, happy than actually seeing it come to fruition. I'm pretty sure there's a scripture on that somewhere. But let's get back to the Zaquan.
So we've talked about running for political office. Here we are in 2008 talking about electing a black president. I mean, sure enough, he had one party, the Democrat Party, has offered the nation a choice between a woman and an African American. That's tremendous progress. No need to talk about that 10,
don't let the visuals fool you. Stick to the words.
15 years ago, that wouldn't have happened. And so you have to play them as they hand them to you. I heard a fellow say today, play the hand you're dealt. So many times we can choose, but most of the time, we have to play the hand we're dealt. And I'm proud of the fact that we have people like A.D. and others in the movement who gave their lives and their capacity for thought and perspective and vision to the movement. We're much better off, and we owe them a great debt.
His installation as pastor of Ebenezer occurred in November of '68. And he hit the ground running in terms of his work here at the church.
Man, give me a church. Anybody, give me a church. It is going to be very unconventional. But we're going to talk the most. The point is saying, I wasn't even born then. Listen to this man's legacy. Yes, Khan. I'm very confident. I do believe that Dr. Martin Luther King was also one of his brother who was murdered like he was. It wasn't about Dr. Martin Luther King or his day, because that Boondocks episode is hilarious. It was about the entire movement of the children of Israel coming back to God, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the world being in shalom and peace without murdering each other, without injusticeness, without us being drugged and hung in the middle of the streets, without us being kidnapped and raped, without our buildings and churches being bombed, without us being discriminated against, last, hired, first, fired. It's about a bigger movement. So as we learn about Zaquan, Reverend A.D. King, the brother of Dr. Martin Luther King, the little baby brother, the Jeremiah to my Yashar, the Bayamian to my Zakaria, to my Lamadia, you know. But specifically, I'm going to say Jeremiah Yashar because that's what I see in this group. I'm reverencing all my Elijah, my Bayam, you know, waiting for Kyler to come back. All praise the Most High. So pray for the restoration of children, you know, fathers, mothers. All right, let's get back to this, man. This is beautiful.
He was greatly involved with the establishment of the Children's Chapel. He identified a person by the name of Mary Manuel, who took leadership of the Children's Chapel, which he was very passionate about. And today it is named in his honor, the A.D. Williams King Children's Chapel. He also established a television broadcast for Ebenezer in conjunction with the WAGA Channel 5. He engaged the services of his sister, Mrs. Christine King Ferris, to direct that program. Reverend A.D. Williams King also served as an assistant pastor after his ordination. Before he was called to the Mount Vernon Baptist Church in Newnham, he did serve as an assistant pastor at Ebenezer. Here we see the Reverend A.D. Williams King at his installation banquet. The main speaker of that banquet was the Reverend Leo Lesser Jr., which I understand from Mrs. Naomi King was a very good friend of Reverend A.D. Williams King.
Spirituality was pivotal to the civil rights movement.
Spirituality played a tremendous role in breaking down these barriers and Jim Crow laws. You had to have something deeper than, I mean, we couldn't have paid people to do what they did if spirituality had not been a part of it.
Because of their collective faith, the movement became a spiritual movement and a force of monumental dimension.
It was very deep. That word, the second word in the name, Christian. Had it not been for our Christian faith, we would not have been able to accomplish what we did.
Pause. Let me make this open proclamation for nobody for all those who don't understand. I am a Christian, okay? I am 1200% a Christian. And if anybody has an issue with that, of me being Yashar Allah, Banya Yashar Allah, and also taking the title of a Christian, I've always been a Christian. We've always been Christians. We may not have behaved like the proper terminology of a Christian. We may have gotten off track, or we may have even thought that, oh, hey, a Christian is to behave like this or like that. But as we continue to grow in this truth, as we walk and believe in Hamashiach Yahushua, as we consider ourselves to be of the anointed people, of the anointed Savior, of following after him, you better call yourself a Christian.
And notice I said Christian faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen.
You know, the Birmingham movement, the Selma movement, it was like a children crusade. The young people went to jail. And I tell you, without the Black church, there wouldn't have been a civil rights movement. You can say amen. You can say amen. The movement came out of the church, and it's so appropriate to be meeting here in this chapel, named for Martin Luther King Jr. And without the music, of the movement. Without the music of the church, the civil rights movement would have been like a bird without wings. And I tell you, without the movement, without the leadership of Martin Luther King Jr. and A.D. King, there would be no Barack Obama as president of the United States of America today.
I completely agree, and I love the way he said America.
He said that I want that this nation to know that we are a Christian people, that we follow the teachings of Jesus Christ. He punctuated everything that he spoke about, reminding people that this is a movement led by the Spirit of God. It's a movement led by the Spirit of Christ, that Christ is the head. He punctuated it. He always used the example of Christ, and that was consistent, throughout the movement with, even all the members of our family. It came out of the church. I mean, it was led by these men, and Uncle A.D. was very supportive and very involved with Daddy in the movement.
I don't think it's any secret that Dr. King was a preacher, a God-called preacher. I don't think it's any secret that A.D. was a God-called preacher. Dr. King founded SCLC, was his first president. I don't think it's any secret that the civil rights movement met in churches when they couldn't meet anywhere else. I don't think it's any secret that rallies were held in churches around the country whenever inspiration needed to be given or information needed to be given or money.
I apologize. These pictures are so beautiful. These images are so beautiful. And salute to our Amium, our Abium, all right, who lived and went through these time frames that we haven't had to see. We're seeing Bati boys and aliens, Bati boys and chariots in the world on fire. Our forefathers, our mothers, man, fathers, Wow. Another thing is that these Aquanium, these elders speak I am so ashamed of my speech. And then on top of that, another thing is that I was building with a pastor in St. Louis. And while we was building, he made sure he spoke very slowly and very lowly. And I was like, man, you gonna make the people hear you. I'm in the back of the church, and he dang near whispering with a microphone. I'm like, wow, you gonna make sure people hear you. And that's what I'm thinking. And then I'm talking to one of his congregation members, and they said to me, they verified. They said the reason why pastor speaks like that, and the church was full. It wasn't empty. It was a full church. And she was like, because they listen, they have to listen. And I was like, that's really good. I really appreciate that. But I recognize that same trait in this minister also. It's a very beautiful trait. And again, salute to our elders who lived during this time frame.
Need to be given. Because the church is where the people were. It's where the people are now. And so, so when you talk about the leader being a God-called preacher and the movement moving through and by the spirit that's in the churches, and which means people.
All right, that's what's up. Man, these Aquanium are some beasts. Yes, church does mean army. It means people. It means camp.
You got to sort of feel like this is not something that's man-made. That this is of God. It's the way God is parting the Red Sea. It's the way God is bringing the bones together from the valley. It's God's doing. It's God's business. If we ever take the power of God's Spirit out of SCLC or out of the civil rights movement, it's dead. It has no power without that. That was its foundation. That spirituality has always got to be there. And the churches will have to play its role. and the leaders are going to have to be spiritual. And God forbid that you try to put that the spirit and the spirituality with just intellect.
Booyah! I heard that earlier and it cut me. Like, man, you can't separate spiritual and spirituality from intellect, you know. And I'm like, oh man, you know, I'm very grateful because the Father's shown me a lot of things, and I have to really tap back into the spirituality side. It's beautiful. Let's listen.
For the academics, there's got to be a good mixture, but the bottom line has got to be the spirit. We got to believe that God is with us, no matter what happens to us. God is with us. God is going to bring us out. God is going to deliver us. Now, without that, you can't trust in man and what man will do, because man is like the wind blowing. It's blowing one way in the morning, another way in the evening.
And all I can say to you all that don't know AD, what a man, what a man, what a mighty man.
I'm sorry, did she just quote Salt and Pepper? I think so, but it's okay because he's worthy of his respect. He's worthy of his honor. All right. The scriptures tell us that when a wicked man dies, the city rejoices. That's a Hamite. For those who don't know, that's a Hamite. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and get back here. Let's get back here to the OGs. All right. So, but that is a proverb. You know that when a wicked man lives, the city languishes. When a righteous man dies, the city mourns. So, you know, there's been so many times when I myself, you know, there go the elder right there, A.D. King, the brother of Dr. Martin Luther King, a odor spitting image of my bond, Yeremiah. All right. But the point of saying that is to say, and I want to stop on this image right here. If I could, this would be my I guess I can, but this would be my click image or whatever, clickbait, whatever. But the reason being is because you can see that this is the whole legacy. This is the legacy. Okay, so we have Zaquan, Dr. Martin Luther King, and it feels good because I feel like, and Elder Free, give us free. All right, Elder Free. He said something powerful to me. He said, "Feelings change." I said, "Yeah, man, good looking. I need to hear that." Hey, man, feelings change. Feelings change. And he just walked off. But I feel that Dr. King wouldn't be offended if people gave reverence to the man that was by his side. I'm trying to not shed tears. Brotherhood and unity is so beautiful. It's so powerful. It's so beautiful. And when it's broken or when it's hurt, even Jeremiah got the booty chin, just like Elder. Elder got the deep booty chin, boy. You know what they say about men with booty chins? Yeah, I don't need it. But brotherhood is so powerful, and you know when it's broken, it's harder to get. It's easier to conquer a fortified city. It's easier to take over a city that's got big walls, and you can't. Let's put it in layman's terms. Let's put it in Babylonian terms. It's easier to hit a lick and to rob Nino Brown and the Carter. It's easier to do that than it is to win back a brother that's been offended. So these two brethren working together is, being both martyred. That's something else. These men were martyred. And here goes something. This man wasn't blind. You know what them glasses was? Them was Lokes. That's what we called them back in the day. Here, let me show y'all something. Let me look. Lokes glasses, LA. Here, look. Y'all might not remember these, but I do. The banger in me won't let me forget. I be trying. Look, that man got on Lokes. He ain't sitting there with no little like, I fit in with everybody. That man got on some gangster glasses. Yeah, I hope y'all can see that. The point of saying such is to say there's another Zaquan that was right there with our Zaquan, Dr. Martin Luther King. And I pray that somebody really seen this, man. I think clickbait and all the tomfoolery and stupid stuff be getting the forefront. But when it comes to the Torah, when it comes to real teachings, real understandings of
different topics that we're all looking into. Sometimes those things are shadowed, and they're shadowed by Yashar Allah's vanity. They're shadowed by the things we want to see, opposed to the things that, you know, actually edify us. So this documentary, I just clicked it. I hope that YouTube doesn't, you know, trip and be acting like some busters. All right, you know, I did the whole, hey, you know, I own the rights to this and all that other good stuff, you know. But I pray that this is used for edification. You know, that somebody learns something out of it. That there's some Banyam, there's some sons, there's some brothers, there's some revolutionaries that see this and like, oh yeah, man, I didn't even know that. Yeah, I didn't know it either. I didn't know it either. So on this day, I pray to everybody, Barak Yawam, everyone rest well. All right. As you see, I really don't have too much to say outside from brotherhood, second greatest commandment. Love your neighbor as yourself. You know, these brothers stuck together side by side. They were both martyred. They were both martyred. All right. I had a good time. I need to come. I love you all. Kwame Asharala. I pray that you all have a better time also. I think I'm gonna keep learning. This was very edifying. All right. If you enjoyed yourself, put a 7 here. Kwame Asharala. Yabarakakum Yawasham Mashiach Yehoshai. I'm currently being harassed by a huge Corsador dog, which is trying to tickle me. It's crazy. All right. Shalom. Love y'all.